Welcome to the show. So I have, shared the podcast that I did before with this guest so many times. I was like, it is time for her to come back. I've got Dr. Ritamarie Loscalzo on with me today, and she just does the most beautiful explanation about blood sugar, insulin resistance, how it all works, why it matters, what you should do. So I wanted her to come on in and go deeper into insulin resistance, what it is, why it matters, how it's more than just what you eat here that makes a difference. She's going to share why or how she was actually eating fantastic and had the beginning signs of prediabetes and why you need to pay attention to that right away and what you can do about it. So I'm excited to share her story and then all the different things that you need to know, because this is, just foundational for having amazing health. She's also got an incredible quiz, an insulin resistance quiz that you will be able to grab with our cheat sheet. We do the greatest cheat sheet show notes, and you can get that all at jjvirgin.com/IR for insulin resistance, IR. Let me tell you a little bit about Dr. Ritamarie. So Dr. Ritamarie is a chiropractic doc with certifications in acupuncture, nutrition, herbal medicine, and heart math. She's also a certified living food chef, instructor, and coach. And she has trained and certified hundreds in the art of using palate-pleasing whole fresh food as medicine. She's the founder of the Institute of Nutritional Endocrinology, where she specializes in using the wisdom of nature to restore balance to hormones, with a special emphasis on thyroid, adrenal, and insulin imbalances. She's a best-selling author, speaker, and an internationally recognized nutrition and women's health authority with over 23 years of clinical experience. She also has online courses, long-distance coaching, counseling, and great live events. All righty, Dr. Ritamarie, welcome to the show. I'm so glad you're here with me today.
Well, I'm really glad to be here. Thank you for having me.
Well, I think I might have worn out our past podcast, because anytime I'm talking about blood sugar, I'm like, you got to listen to this one. And I have them listen to your brilliant podcast. I love talking to you about blood sugar and insulin resistance, because I think you do the best job explaining it.
Great. Well, I'm happy to do that, because it's something I'm really passionate about speaking about.
Well, let's start there, because why? Why are you so passionate about blood sugar? What the heck?
Wow. Yeah. So here's the thing. I feel like it is the underlying cause of so many people's health issues, whether it be their brain fog, their fatigue, the extra belly fat that just won't go away, or even as serious as high blood pressure and cardiovascular disease. And the thing is, it's almost like this hidden killer, right? It sits there and people don't even know they have it until, voila, they have diabetes or they have a heart attack. And for me, I find that I'm able to help so many people get their health back when we address their blood sugar balance. So that's why, and also it's affected my family and me in such a profound way.
So Ritamarie, someone would look at you and go, okay, you look like you are the queen of health. You've never had any issues. So that's why I want to bring this up. Share your story.
Here's the thing. I've been working with clients and patients for 25 years, and I decided I was going to, I had such profound results with helping people with blood sugar balance. I was going to do an online program. So I bought myself a new meter and I got my video all set up, and I was about to take a video of me teaching people how to test their own blood sugar. And I tested my blood sugar after having, before I had anything to eat, first of all. And I said, okay, so there's my blood sugar. It was a wonderful 68 or 70 or something like that. And then I said, well, let me eat a bowl of pineapple. And then I'm going to test my blood sugar again. And within about 15 minutes, because I'm this geek, right? I like to know how long does it take for sugars to go up and how far do they go? And I took my blood sugar about 15 minutes later, and it was up to 137. And if you know anything about blood sugar, you know that 137 is heading towards diabetic range. And we shouldn't have 137 after eating a bowl of pineapple. So I was like, oh, it's just a fluke. So I tested it again 2 minutes later, and it was up to 140. And then I tested it a little later, and it kept going up until it landed at about 167, and almost exactly 45 minutes after I'd eaten, which like really is textbook classic for where it peaks. And then I just kept testing it. I mean, like I said, I'm a geek and I sacrifice my own body for science. So I kept testing it every 10, 15 minutes as it was going down. And I realized that my blood sugar peaked at 167. It was back down in the 80s at about 2 hours. But here was the weird thing. And this is like, oh my God, I have this problem I'm trying to help people solve. It was that once my blood sugar was super high, I was super hungry. I shouldn't have been hungry the way I was hungry, but not like, oh, I'm hungry, I guess I could eat something. It was like, give me something now. And it was all I could do to keep myself from eating something to wreck my test. So my geekiness got, a better stance than my passion or my, desire for food. But the thing was, it was like really weird because I started to just detect these things in my body. And I started to look at it like, yeah, you're right. You look at me and think I'm fit. I don't have the belly fat, and my brain is pretty darn sharp most of the time. And I work out and I eat well. So why would I have this problem? But it turned out that I have what I like to call pre-insulin resistance. I wouldn't be diagnosed by the medical profession as having insulin resistance because my fasting blood sugar is still, in the 70s or 80s. But I have like what happens to a lot of people, and it catches them off guard a decade or two before they actually develop diabetes or full-blown insulin resistance. So I'm just passionate about helping people to detect this before it really deteriorates their health.
Well, this is so important, Ritamarie, because people don't wake up one day diabetic.
No.
And I think that's the thing. You go to the doctor and they go, well, watch that. Well, that's a little elevated. We'll watch that. So this happens over time. And ideally, someone is doing what you did so that they never get there. And that's what I love about what you're doing is it is so proactive. But you threw out this word insulin resistance. Let's start with that. What the heck? Let's define it and then talk about how someone would know if they had it or if they were going into it.
Yeah. So insulin resistance is the state where the cells in the body can no longer really appreciate and take the message from insulin and help to get sugar into the cells. So let me explain what that means. Insulin's a hormone. And yes, it's not just about sex when we talk hormones. Insulin is a hormone. And insulin is made by the pancreas in response to a meal. You eat a meal, there's some sugar that gets dumped into the blood. The sugar needs to go into the cells so the cells can make energy. And insulin is basically the escort of sugar. Your cells need insulin in order to take the sugar in. But if we just eat normal amounts and healthy foods with the right kind of sugars, like vegetables have sugar, carrots have sugar, tomatoes have sugar, but it's small amounts with lots of fiber. So there's a slow influx into the blood. But if we eat the standard American diet, or we eat some things that are healthier than the standard American diet, but that have a lot of, agave in them or ketchup, and things like that have sugar. And you talk about that a lot in your Sugar Impact book. But what happens is we get this rush of sugar into the bloodstream. And over time, and sometimes it's not that long a time, depending on the genetics, the body develops a resistance to the insulin. It's like, because insulin can damage. Insulin can make cells brittle and stiff, and they don't want that. So we got enough sugar. We don't need any more. Put the brakes on, and then the insulin stays in the bloodstream, and so does the sugar. So the blood sugar starts to go up, and then we get all kinds of damaging things happening as a result. So how do they know? Well, if it gets bad, they'll go to the doctor for their annual exam, and the doctor will test their fasting blood sugar and say, hey, your fasting blood sugar is between 100 and 120. You're pre-diabetic. You have insulin resistance. But do we really want to wait that long is my question. And you just asked that. Do you really want to wait till you have an illness, you have a dysfunction, or do you want to detect it earlier on? So some of the symptoms are things I just mentioned earlier when I said I didn't have, are fatigue. Just like you get tired real easily, especially after eating a meal. You have this big meal, which should energize you, and you feel tired. Craving for sweets after a big meal. That's a huge one because you just ate this big meal, but the sugar's not getting into the cells and the cells are still starving. Brain fog, because the cells in the brain are affected by the insulin. You're not getting the sugar into the brain tissue. But more than that, as we make insulin and the body has to degrade insulin, the enzyme that degrades insulin is the same enzyme that keeps us from developing the kind of neurofibrillary tangles, they call them, that create memory problems and dementia. And so when we have too much of this insulin in the body, we end up with some of that, like we start to like fall and feel for words and not be able to find them or can't find the keys. And everybody has that happen from time to time. But when it starts to happen on a regular basis and you're talking to people and you just kind of can't quite make out what they say and you have difficulty focusing, all of those things can be signs of insulin resistance. And there's a bunch more, but those are a good starting point. And the belly fat. I can't forget about the belly fat, right?
You can't forget about that.
Because that's the one that actually gets people to take action, believe it or not. They could care less about the fatigue, right? And the brain fog, but the belly fat. You exercise and you see people. I remember seeing kids at my son's swim meet. And there's these young teenagers, there's boys and girls, and the boys have their fat hanging over their belly. They have these beautiful arms that look like swimmer arms, but they have fat hanging over their bathing suits. Same with the girls. And I'm like, what the heck is going on? Then the moms that go to the swim meets to feed the kids in between their races bring out the snacks. And guess what they bring out? Donuts. And I just about fell on the floor.
Oh, I used to, I was a soccer mom, Ritamarie. And, they always talked about what snacks to bring for the games. And I was like, oh, no, I'm not bringing those. No, we won't be doing that. To me, the saddest thing is to see a kid with a belly. Like, kids should not have bellies. I mean, none of us should, but especially when you start to see it in children. I mean, we've really managed to mess things up. But I think what's most interesting of all was your initial story of here you were eating healthy and, eating healthy, following a low sugar impact diet, still having some issues there. And so what's up with that?
Yeah, that's what I said. But what I was teaching in my program, but not necessarily following 100%, if you know was that it's not just the food. The food is part of it, but there's also the fitness. Well, I was doing great with fitness. I like to exercise. Mm-hmm. There's stress management, and I'm pretty good at that. I've got some techniques and tools that I've been using. And then there's the one where I fall down flat on my face is sleep.
Missy.
Sleep is super important. One night of bad sleep, can create insulin resistance in a healthy person. Imagine what 3 or 4 years straight of poor sleep. And it wasn't that I couldn't sleep. It wasn't that I had difficulty falling asleep. It's just that I have so many things to do that I never actually got into the bed.
That's helpful. It's so interesting. Yeah, it's like you look at it and go, okay, diet's a key point. Yep. Exercise is, of course, important. You become insulin sensitive quickly with, when you exercise. But sleep, my gosh, I'm so glad you pointed that out because you can be eating correctly and exercising and still be at risk for insulin resistance because of one poor night of sleep, you're more insulin resistant. Just one.
Just one. Yeah. And you'll recover from it if it's just one, like the next day. So I always tell people if you have a bad night of sleep, just stay away from the carbs. Just don't eat anything that's going to cause you to need insulin. But yeah, it gets healed. But if you do it day after day after day, year after year, which I was doing. And so I said, well, of all the things that I teach, the other one I teach is the timing. And you and I have had this conversation before where people are taught, eat small, frequent meals. Grazing is great. Blood sugar balance.
Let's talk about grazing versus meals, because that's another one that just makes me crazy, as you know.
Yeah, absolutely. So we talked about insulin, and you can only develop insulin resistance if you have high levels of insulin in the body on a regular basis. Well, if you graze, meaning eating regularly every few hours, then you've got insulin in your system all day long. Insulin is a fat storage hormone. Get that? Not a fat burning hormone. It's a fat storage hormone. And actually, it antagonizes, it opposes a fat burning hormone called growth hormone. So they can't coexist in high levels at the same time. And so when we eat every couple of hours, like people are instructing, we have all this insulin in the system all day long. You can't burn fat when there's insulin in the system, when there's higher levels than the baseline. You can't. You just can't. It's physiologically, biochemically impossible to do. And so it's actually counter to what people want to achieve, which is burn fat. So, but worst thing you can do. And it also, by keeping the insulin levels up like that, it makes these cells more and more resistant to the insulin.
Yes, I always love it because people say, oh, you should eat small meals all throughout the day to keep your blood sugar stable. I said, but you're just keeping your blood sugar up.
Exactly. And it's not stable. And what you need to do is address the problem. If your blood sugar, if you need to eat every 2 hours to keep your blood sugar and to keep energy up, there's something wrong. I mean, I could go lots of hours. I could go, typically I go 14, 16 hours between dinner and my first meal of the day. And that allows my body to get into cleanup mode and fat burning mode. And it allows my growth hormone levels, which is, like I said, the opposite of insulin. It helps you to store lean body mass. You go work out at the gym and you eat something right away. That kills me when I see people with the goo and the gels and they're just got the sugar right after exercise. You're killing the growth hormone. The growth hormone is what's going to give you back your muscle and it's going to burn fat. So why do we do this?
Yeah. And by the way, you were at the gym. I was watching you. You were spending most of your time on your phone. You didn't need the goo.
Right, exactly. Right. People don't realize the only way they need the goo is if they're on it and they goo. There's probably better ways to do it. But if you're doing a marathon, it's like 20 miles. You can go 20 miles on your glycogen stores. So
yeah. So that's not you at the gym. I mean, I literally watch people in the gym. I'm like, you just came to the gym and spent most of the time. I was at the gym the other day and I was watching these three gals because they talked for 45 minutes. And I went,
But you know what? Check.
All right.
Went to the gym. Check. Right.
Check the box. I went to the gym. So I guess it was better than going to the bakery. That's about what I would say there. So we talked diet, and not just that. It's more than just what you eat. It's also when you eat, which is super important. Yep. We've also talked exercise because of the importance of exercise for improving insulin resistance. We also are improving insulin sensitivity. We also talked sleep. Yep. What about genetics, Ritamarie?
Yeah, so genetics is huge, but we can't blame genetics, right? So I have done genetic testing on myself, and there's a lot of genetics that are related to insulin resistance and diabetes that I personally have. Okay, so there is a genetic factor there. But here's the thing. What genetics is 5% in the environment, the epigenetics is 95%. What it means that I have those genes is that I have less of a window of opportunity to abuse myself, right? Forgive my body is going to be less forgiving about, having M&Ms and
yeah, I call it the low margin for error.
The low margin for error, right? I made a statement last week. I said something like genetics, the genetics tell us how much abuse our body can withstand. None of us should abuse our bodies, no matter how good or bad your genetics are. But the truth of the matter is, the worse your genetics, the less abuse your body will withstand. And so I happen to have a lot of predisposition to that. And when we look at my family members, you see the belly and you see the dead people by the time they reach their 50s. And it's, it's not pretty. And I don't want to go there. So I feel like I just need to be much more careful. And when we look at it, you look at it, the demographics and all, it looks like about 25% of the population is going to be having to be really careful, right? No matter what they do, they just have to be super careful. Another 25%, maybe they can get away with a whole lot. And then the 50% in the middle are going to go either way based on how well they eat, exercise, sleep, stress out, and how they time their meals.
So someone is blessed with great genes. Yeah. And they have, they're in the normal range for blood sugar. Can they kind of do what they want?
No, I don't think so. And you know what? Here's the thing. The testing that the doctors do is it catches end state. It catches you when you're right there, almost diabetic. It doesn't catch you early on. So there are other tests that you can request your doctor do, or you can get a little meter and do at home and see. And you can actually see how the foods affect. Now, do I recommend if somebody just because Twinkies don't raise their blood sugar that they eat Twinkies? No, there's a lot of other reasons they shouldn't be eating it. The hydrogenated fats, the preservatives, the chemicals, and the pesticides and whatever else is in them. So you do have to be careful that you don't damage other parts just because your blood sugar handling is okay.
Right. I mean, there's way more going on here. You could trigger an autoimmune response, a lot more stuff going on. So someone's been sleeping poorly, they're sitting on the couch, they've been eating garbage, little meals all throughout the day, or maybe even eating healthy, but little meals all throughout the day, having that nighttime snack. I literally saw this in one of my groups. She says, I just need something sweet at night. What can I have? I'm like, no, I'm not going to give you something sweet at night. No, I was like, I can't do that. That's like when the last thing you want to do is eat something sweet before you go to sleep. You don't want to eat anything before you go to sleep. That's really bad training. But let's say someone's been doing all this. Is it possible to reverse this? And if so, what are a couple key tips?
Oh, absolutely. I see it reverse all the time. And I would have said a few years back that it's easier in people who are not as far along, and that diabetics, it will take longer. But I have seen diabetics go off medication and get their blood sugar normalized within a couple of weeks. So it definitely can happen. I've seen it. I see it all the time in my program. So what do they have to do? Well, first of all, sleep would be a good thing. Second of all, get rid of the crap, basically, a low sugar impact diet like you teach in your sugar impact book, which, you look at the carbohydrate content. Glycemic index, by the way, is just not the be all and the end all. You can't go by, this is a low glycemic food. Agave is a low glycemic food. Some places list bananas as low glycemic foods. They're not. They are sugar foods. And you have to find out your own glycemic index, really. Like some people can tolerate a banana and other people forget it. Banana is going to go put them through the roof, right? And then you've got to look at movement. I mean, I love burst training, right? You get to do 30 seconds. I take my little exercise ball. I run up and down the stairs. You could take a bag of potatoes. That's the only thing potatoes are good for. No, I exercise with them. They're heavy, big bag. They're cheap. You run up and down the stairs with them. And you get your heart rate up.
I've got to see your home gym at some point. We got to take a picture of her home gym. She probably has bags of sugar and potatoes.
Yeah, that's what they're for, right? I actually filmed for last year for a class I did. I actually filmed, somebody came over and they filmed me doing squats with a bag of potatoes. So just to show you, you don't need any fancy weights. You can just use food. But anyway, so the exercise is critical. And I just say 30 seconds several times throughout the day. You don't even have to do it like the 30 seconds on and then the 2 minutes off and the 30 seconds on. You can just do 30 seconds throughout the day. Because here's what some of the studies have shown is that 30 seconds of all-out burst training raises the growth hormone as much as 30 minutes of just low-grade cardio exercise. And that if you space those 30-second bursts a couple of hours apart, you actually get a constant elevation of the growth hormone every time you do it. If you do them too close together, you don't get the same dramatic growth hormone. Not that it's bad to do them close together. There's a lot of other cardio benefits as well. But I'm just trying to make it easy for people who are the couch potato, right?
They're also thinking, I can't sweat. It's like, well, just take the Exciser. It's funny. We just moved the Exciser basically because it was out in the garage. I'm like going, I got to put it somewhere where I'm going to step on it.
Yeah.
On it, because it's like you do it a couple times throughout the day. It makes a big difference. And come on, you can't add a minute, 30 to 60 seconds a couple times a day. You're not going to get sweaty.
No, you don't get sweaty with it. I've got mine sitting right next to my desk and I've got my Bosu right there next to it. So your
bag of potatoes?
I don't have a bag of potatoes anymore. That was just for show. I don't eat them. My son who liked potatoes, he doesn't live here anymore, so we don't buy potatoes anymore.
So one last question for you. So Dr. Ritamarie, what is the one thing you do every day that you feel makes the biggest difference in your life?
Well, I eat really, really well. You mean in addition to the eating?
In addition to the eating, one thing, just one thing that you do every day that's just your thing that just...
You know, I would a year ago I wouldn't have said this, but I meditate, and I started doing it last Christmas because I got this really cool device and it makes me meditate, and I get to compete against myself. But I would say heart math is something I've been doing for a long time, and it's basically a combination, a quick, like 30 seconds to 2-minute break where you just stop, you do some deep breathing, and you go into appreciation. And I do that several times throughout the day. Really?
All righty. Yep. Nothing like gratitude and appreciation to shift your state.
Unbelievable. Like I tell people, if you don't have a lot to be grateful for, just look overhead. Is the roof leaking? No. Wow, you have a roof that keeps you dry. Like it doesn't have to be big.
Yeah, you win. You're breathing. So I know that you have a quiz on insulin resistance. And for everybody listening, we are going to link to the show notes, all the cool cheat sheet, other great resources. You can go to jjvirgin.com/IR for insulin resistance. And tell us a little bit about this quiz and what they can learn.
Yes, absolutely. It's like 15-ish questions, and it goes through quickly. And you basically will find out what your risk is. Like if you've got this perfect score with 0, which is a perfect score, then you're normal, you're great. You don't have to worry about insulin resistance, but you should not eat the crap and, cause yourself to get it. You don't have it yet. And then it goes all the way up to high risk. Like it's critical that you do something about it. So we'll give you a score, and then we'll give you some ideas of what to do about it based on what your score is.
Fabulous. So this is a way to be very proactive, and that's what everyone listening are, proactive people who look for actionable things they can do for their health. So we gave you a lot of actionable things here in the call, but the biggest actionable thing right now is to go to jjvirgin.com/IR, take that quiz, see where you're at. And Ritamarie, you're always just a wealth of knowledge. I super appreciate you, and you're my go-to gal on blood sugar balance and insulin resistance. So I really appreciate all that you're doing out there in the world. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you for having me back again.
Oh, sure. Always. And you'll be back again. So we will just keep updating everyone on information as you get it, because I know you always stay on the cutting edge of all of it. So again, I appreciate that. Now, after the break, I'll be answering the listeners' questions. So stay with me.
Want a better quality of sleep while also calming your brain? Now, there's a great tasting way to do it. JJ Virgin's lemon-flavored sleep candy contains amino acids and nutrients to help you naturally fall asleep with ease. This gluten-free, non-GMO, dairy-free sleep assistant also helps you stay asleep so you feel rejuvenated and more relaxed. So if you want to get a better night's sleep, visit www.jjvirgin.com/products and try JJ Sleep Candy.
Welcome back. This is a time where I answer a listener's question, and today's question was just so perfect. It actually was a question from one of my groups, and I have a couple private Facebook groups. One of them is from is a group for my 7-day Stop, Drop, and Swap Challenge, which is definitely something you'll want to be a part of if you're not already. You can join. It's free, my favorite word, at jjvirgin.com/challenge. We'll have that in the show notes. But a listener in there or a group member asked me for a good recommendation for she said, I always need a sweet at night. And what is a snack I can have before bed, a sweet snack I can have before bed? Now, I sort of started to have a heart attack over the question, because I was like, well, I don't want you to have a snack before bed, and I certainly don't want you to have a sweet one. Now, you heard from Ritamarie, one of the things that we talk about is it's not just what you eat, it's also when you eat, and that you really want a good 12 to 16 hour overnight fast. I start people with 12 hours and see how much we can expand that. And so you want to stop eating at least 3 hours before bed. And no, that does not mean go to bed later. All right. Just to clarify. So the last thing that you want to do is eat a little sweet before bed, because that generally is going to be a little carb hit before bed, and you just jacked up your blood sugar, and you're going to lower your growth hormone, which is what you want to have high while you're sleeping. So what I think of when I think of that is that we really need to retrain. You're probably not hungry. In fact, there was a great study done on dieters at night, and they found that a glass of water shut down 100% of their evening hunger pangs. So my guess is if you are hungry, have a glass of water, but it's probably not hunger. It's probably boredom and maybe your brain needing a little hit of serotonin, which that sugar hit will drive serotonin up in your brain. And so what we really need to work on is a substitute better activity. So something like a hot Epsom salts bath with a little lavender oil in it. That would actually be my best one. Maybe a little tapping. We can put a resource here for tapping as well with my buddy Nick Ortner. But what we really need to do is swap out that activity, because that activity will never support you having great blood sugar balance, dropping your belly fat, and being lean. So we got to get out of that evening snack. I mean, I looked at that and went, there's nothing I can tell you to have. Nothing. If you do need a little sweet, ideally follow the sugar impact diet and lose your sweet tooth. But one of the things I would recommend is my fiber bar, my dark chocolate coconut fiber bar, and cutting it into little pieces and having a little bit of that. But ideally, get rid of your sweet tooth altogether. We've talked about that plenty of times. I have a product, a drink I've made called lemonade, where you use a little lemon juice, which is great because sour takes your sweet tooth away, coupled with glutamine, L-glutamine powder, which actually tricks your body into thinking you've had a little bit of something to eat. And couple that with fiber, so you have some good blood sugar balanced, and it's amazing how well that can work. So that's my answer to that evening snack on a couple different levels. And thank you so much for posting that question. Now, if you'd like to post a question, easiest thing to do is pop on over to one of my social media sites, especially Facebook at JJ Virgin Official or Instagram at jj.virgin. We always are checking those out and looking for great questions that we want to include on the show. And I always try to make them fit with the show topics. Now, next thing that we always include in the show is a little gratitude for our listeners. And nothing makes me happier than when I read a review on Stitcher or iTunes. This one came from Stitcher. And it is, here it says, very top-notch, 5 stars. I listen to this show every day when I work. The guests are the highest qualified in the field of functional medicine. I'm implementing things in my life as a diabetic. It seems like the common ground among the experts here is that they could not get help by conventional Western medicine, so they looked elsewhere and got amazing results. Being a school counselor, I also appreciate the mental health episodes too and learn a lot from them. Mahalo. Okay. Edson must be from Hawaii. Thank you so much for that. We love those reviews so much because we know that people decide, there's a lot of podcasts out there, and people decide what they're going to listen to based on what other people say. So it helps a ton. Not only does it make us feel good, but it helps a ton when you go in there and make those comments. So big thank you to Edson, and thank you to everyone who's left a review. And if you're driving, listening, at the gym, wherever, and you think, oh my gosh, I have not left a review, I would so appreciate if you could jump on over to iTunes and leave a review. While you're there, if you haven't subscribed, hit that button and share this with some pals who you care about. Nothing says I love you like sharing the gift of health. And we strive in this show to give you simple, actionable, science-based solutions that you can put into effect for immediate impact. Alrighty. Thank you so much. See you next time.